First tour. First tour, yeah. We had a brigade commander who was a full colonel Army guy, and he was a total idiot. And he, all Army bases have Air Force people, a handful of people, kind of like forward to liaison to try and teach the Army what the Air Force can do and support if you can't use your bayonet. But anyway, they came out of Fort Riley, or I don't know where he came from, but apparently he never listened to him, or he had no love or use for the Air Force, period. So anyway, we get there in Vietnam and get set up. Of course, the Army tends to want to own you, lock, stock, and barrel. Well, we had a major who was our boss, and he'd worked with the Army before, I guess, on firepower demonstrations and all that. And he learned how to handle the Army. First thing the Army says, you got to come and live in the swamp and all that down by Saigon. He said, my people go to Ben Wa Air Force Base and sleep in beds. So anyway, we go to Ben Wa and all that. But anyway, they finally get all organized. This all happened so fast. The Army was so disorganized, you can't believe it. They had people coming. Well, let's back up. The Big Red One, the 1st Infantry Division, had been very famous in World War I. I mean, in World War II. They had never gone to Korea. I don't know why. And then suddenly now they rang the bell on them at Fort Riley, Kansas. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And I think they had a small contingent of people over there trying to figure out what they were going to do. But anyway, they had people coming nonstop, officers, NCOs, enlisted guys from all over the world, from Germany and everything, to be a brand new platoon leader, company commander. Didn't even know their troops or anything. Anyway, we're on ships going over there. Did I tell them the story about? Did I tell you that one? Anyway,
I don't know.
We get on board ship. We go on trains. We brand new Western airline, and I never knew I didn't think it's a no-no to start an airplane in a hangar. Anyway, we flew out of Kansas City in a brand new airport up north part, and they had this, I can't remember what kind of airplane it was, but they're brand new airplanes, and we all got on board, of course, carrying our M16s and Colt masterpieces. The stewardesses are all looking like that. And we had a captain comes on and says, good afternoon, gentlemen. Please store your weapons under the seat. Anyway, they crank up the engines and we taxi out of there. And anyway, we get to California, Oakland, and we're getting ready to. I don't know. I can't remember how we got from the airplane to the dock. But anyway, they had all these anti-guys standing in the way, and I would have honked the horn and ran over them. But anyway, here we go over on a ship with all these Army guys, a whole division that didn't know anybody. And right off the bat, I had a Air Force Staff Sergeant. They came out of the mob. They call it I don't know what, mobility something or other. The Air Force put this together real fast, and we had all these pilots, and then our enlisted guys were all maintenance guys. They had these real brand new fantastic Jeeps with all this fantastic radio gear. God, it had a pallet. Big steel aluminum pallet. You could pull out a whole radio station you could put in a bunker. It had HF, upper and lower and sideband, FM, VHF, everything. And plus it had built in permanently too. Well, anyway, those Jeeps were blue when they left the East Coast. When they arrived in Oakland, they were olive drab. we suddenly we became very, very high priority, and the first M16, this is the early days of the M16, and the first ones were recalled, and we even got newer ones before we left. But we had all this field gear that Army guys had never even seen. But we get to Oakland, get on the ships, and of course the officers are up in cabin class, and the troops are all down in these holes. God, it must have been miserable, sick and seasick and vomiting. Anyways, my sergeant hunted me down and said, "Sir, they got me down in the bilge." He's an NCO. The Army doesn't consider an Air Force staff sergeant as an NCO. And of course, I thought, my God, if I lose him, what am I going to do? You got to support your sergeant. So anyway, I found the Army guy, and I think he flew over, but anyway, we had this guy called Mother Plummer, we called him, but he was the Brigade XO, and he was a ding-a-ling. But I tried to explain to him, I said, you have my Air Force Staff Sergeant, who's an NCO in the Air Force, down in the hold, and I want him up in the cabin class. Well, anyway, he finally won that battle, and he was a lieutenant colonel, I think, and he finally came to me, and he finally said, well, I just really did it because we had one of the NCOs that didn't show. But anyway, I was in a cabin class with two chaplains. One was a major. I was a brand new major. And one was a lieutenant colonel. And the lieutenant colonel kind of was probably more experienced in the ministry. And I think it was probably assigned rank, or I don't think he'd ever really been in the Army all his life. Well, anyway, Chappie, a little short, stocky guy who was a major, he'd been an Army soldier, and he really knew how to take care of the troops and talk to them. Well, anyway, these two guys were at each other's throat all the way over there, and Chappie carried a .45, and chaplains aren't supposed to carry weapons. Yeah. Chappie says, I'm a damn soldier. If they come in here, I'm going to get them. But anyway, I had these two guys like this the whole way over. And before we left Fort Riley, Kansas, our boss, the Army still had M14 rifles. They didn't even have M16. Here's a first-line infantry division. And he told, and also we got, they were kind of stamped 38s at first. Anyway, they exchanged them for Navy combat masterpieces or something. Really neat pistol, 38. And he had each one of us, he said, you go to the Ace Hardware or hardware store in Junction City, and you buy a piece of chain, and you chain those damn weapons to your bed because they're going to be gone in the morning. The Army guys wanted that. So we did that all the way over there. And then all the way over, it was lessons learned. They were getting messages back, from this detachment that went over there. But, oh, my God, I've never been in around. And then there's the night. Oh, we had, like I said, this Army full colonel with a brigade commander. And when we go out to this area, the 2nd Brigade went here and the 3rd Brigade went over here. We ended up in the little town of Fuquevin, just a little village, and there was a Special Forces outfit that was there, and they'd won their friendship. Special Forces, that's part of their mission, is to, make friends and do all that crap beside being soldier. Well, anyway, they'd made peace with the civilians and all that. And here comes the big red one, with all this power, And I remember the Special Forces major came in and they told him, you get lost. I felt sorry for that guy. But anyway, our brigade commander, anyway, they set up camp, and I don't know much about the Army, but everything's in threes. There's 3 battalions, and there's the main, anyway. We go into where this rubber plantation is, and I guess the name of the game was, you don't go into this rubber plantation because it's owned by this wealthy lady in Saigon. Well, anyway, so the Army goes in. I would have put people all around our damn perimeter. They leave the rubber plantation wide open. They put a battalion here, a battalion here, battalion here. And I'm thinking, if I was a VC, I would come in through that damn, guess what happened? Yeah. And of course the Army puts up these damn tents and there's guy wires all over. The first night we get attacked, about 2 a.m, typical. God, I got to run to the Tactical Operations Center. We got an artillery officer there. We got me. We got all the brigade staff in there. God, everybody's tripping over all these damn guy wires. We get in there, and Major Nunn, who's the artillery officer, I didn't know too much about the Army, but I soon learned that they were a pretty neat guy. This is an infantry division. When an infantry division goes to war, they pick up all kinds of artillery support. They pick up tanks. They pick up all kinds. They have tremendous firepower. Well, anyway, Major Nunn is a pretty experienced guy, and I get into the talk after picking myself up, and he's in there, he's cranking his field phone up down to the fire control center, and almost immediately we hear these big explosions. Well, guess you know what he was doing? You can't fire through the camp out into the rain. He fired straight up and back down in and scared them off. Wow. And I thought, that's pretty neat. The brigade commander, what happened? And then finally, we actually had little hooches. I don't know they were buildings. Some kind of building, but we didn't have any lockers or anything. But I remember we had the guys that sprayed the anti-fouling. Found out they had a bunch of old wall lockers, and they dumped them off so we could we were just living out of our foot locker. Mm-hmm. And they had a mess hall where we ate. And, the Army, I guess the Marines the same way, but you do not part with your weapon anytime other than to go in the mess hall. So they stack all these damn M14s outside the mess hall. Well, the Army had this Sergeant Major, he's like a chief in the Navy, and he is God Almighty. He is really, really looked up to. Mm-hmm. And anyway, he was a black guy, really sharp, but he really gave us a hard time because we weren't very Armish, and we were having our little happy hours at night, which the brigade commander said, there'll be no drinking, no nothing. They got all the soldiers got 1 can of beer or Coke or a soda a day, and that was it. But he said, if I catch anybody drinking or anything, you're out of here, or you're court-martialed. But anyway, being Air Force guys, we got to have our happy hours. Well, there wasn't any ice. The only guy that had ice was the brigade doctor or whatever he was, who was another medic or something. And he had this damn little refrigerator. Well, in town you couldn't get any ice. It all had straw in it. It was, God, you wouldn't want to even get near it. So we thought, we got to make friends with this guy. We got to have ice for our drinks. It was like high school, drinking in the closet. And, we were getting care packages from our wives with cheese and crackers and stuff, and trying to make ice cubes in his little ice maker. But anyway, we decided to, I know what happened. Here's back to your story. Airman Bannell, when we decided to take all the pallet out of the Jeep and put it in a bunker, and then make my Jeep a flight line. In other words, we had a strip with battalions around it, but there's no tower, no control, no nothing. It was just a big, long dirt strip. I think it wasn't paved, if I remember right. No control. Well, anyway, the district chief lived real close to there, where Airman Bandel came with the airplane, out of the 22nd TAS at Benoit. It was his airplane, and he was there to maintain it, Well, he could see all this Army crap going, and maybe he'd already figured that out down. So he said, I'm living at the district chief's house, where he could booze and he could, have a little better life. And he used my Jeep to go down and get the airplane ready, and he'd come up. Well, he'd just leave his M16 in the back seat, throw it in there, come into the talk to see what the frag was, to decide what. Oh, also, not only the 4 marking rockets, we had a rubber band around here with a whole bunch of smoke grenades. When we ran out of Willie Pete's, we'd throw out grenades trying to tell the fighters where to drop. Well, anyway, we were leaving stuff in the airplane like we're used to. Well, the first night he's there, the VC come in, they stole our parachutes and the smoke grenades and everything. Well, anyway, we finally convinced the Army to get us a Conex, which is a big, big steel, like a dumpster. Yeah. It's lockable, so we put all that in there every night and everything. But every morning we went down to pre-flight the airplane. We were scared to death. It'd be booby-trapped. You had to open up a thing on the engine to check it. We'd open it right, peek in there. But another part of the story, they had an 8-inch howitzer on a mound right above where the airplane was. And these Army guys used to always watch us. Well, anyway, when that thing fired, man, there was a muzzle blast and it sounded like the world's coming to an. Anyway, we were down there lifting up this thing, and they fire that thing. God, we thought the airplane blew up. They're up there laughing. But anyway, back to the sergeant major. Anyway, he decided to teach Airman Bandel. He was just maybe a 2-striper, I think, Air Force guy, a lesson, and he took his M16 when he was in the talk, when Bandel was in the talk. He went out, started to drive away. He looked in the back seat, his M16 was gone. He came back and said, Colonel Gaessler, my M16's gone. I thought, oh shit. I knew immediately who had it. So my brigade FAC and we roomed together, and we decided to play a little trick on the Army, which, God, you just don't do things like this in the Army. You probably get court-martialed. But anyway, what we did, we came out of the mess hall, and each one of us picked up 2 M14 and took them back and locked them in our closet, in our wall locker. And I thought, oh, God, I wonder what's going to happen. Of course, the Army guy go up to the sergeant major, my rifle's gone. and we have this. I'm sure that our sergeant major knew what it was, and we knew what, but nobody. So finally, I don't know how we came to a bargaining and swap guns.
That's funny.
Oh man.
And then go ahead.
And then there was a night. Finally, the brigade commander. I think he was about to retire, and like I said, he was just out to lunch. I don't know how he ever made full colonel. But anyway, he left, and this lieutenant colonel who'd been in country got promoted to full colonel, and he came over, and he was the brigade commander. The first thing he did, he put out this proclamation: I hereby ban, what do you call it, drinking, all drinking, anyway, you're allowed to drink and all that, but if I catch any of you drunk or something. But anyway, the morale went up like 100%. But anyway, this first big we just sat in base camp and let them attack us every night and everything. Never went out after them. And another funny thing that came earlier now, the VC would come in at night. There was a chapel, a church, kind of in between these battalions. Anyway, the VC snuck in one night, got up on the top of the church. And the old Papasan minister, or whatever you call him, big, long beard, call him. They got up on top of the chapel. They fired one shot into this brigade, one shot into that battalion, and bugged out. And the Army just opened up on that damn chapel and just lowered it. They just blew the hell out. And Papasan comes in, "You hurt my church." Oh, man, they were weird. But anyway, we had this other guy come in. He got promoted, and he said, "We're going to go after those guys." So he'd leave one battalion and guard a base camp, and we start going out. And I thought, oh, man, it's going to be interesting. And first night we go out, and you don't stay very long because they zero in on your position. So we're going out with a whole battalion, and in my Jeep, and Sergeant Rogers and me. And I think it was almost, the first night we dug in. We actually dug slit trenches, and we were in sandy soil, and Sergeant Rogers with his shovel dug 2 places for us in practically no time. And then the second time, this brigade commander believed in moving all the time. Keep them guessing, I guess, I don't know. And the second night, it was a little bit different. And the third night, the place we decided to stop was like digging in clay. God, matter of fact, he had a pickaxe, just, wham! You'd get a little chunk of dirt. And we didn't have a trench big enough for a baby when we got attacked that night. They had us totally surrounded. Oh, God, you can't believe it. We were under my Jeep, and I ran into the talk. Oh, and then they had there was a Vietnamese flare ship. Then generally they fly with Americans on board. But he shows up and starts dropping flares all over. Well, the brigade commander practically rang he said, "You stop that airship, stop that flare ship." And I'm on my radio, guard channel and everything. Blah, blah, blah. This is Sidewinder 1-1, stop. Roger, he drops more. Can't understand English. Oh, my God, I thought this is the end. And the Army guys, of course, were just opening up like mad. We had tanks around us. They were coming in and putting charges on one track and blowing that track so the tank could just sit there and go in circle. Or they're coming in and putting charges. And in the talk, I could hear all this on FM. Army strictly Fox mic. They call it FM. Air Force operates on UHF pretty much, And God, I'm trying to call airstrikes in. What can you do? You can't do much. They're inside the tank perimeters and all that. And the artillery, we had artillery in there. And God, it was solid smoke, just like a big fireworks demonstration. You couldn't even see the smoke hardly. And the brigade commander screaming at me to stop that damn flare ship. But anyway, what he's getting concerned is, of course, the Army's just opening up on anything they can on automatic. The M16 would go automatic. You eat up a lot of rounds fast. We had, somebody came up with the idea, I think it held 15 rounds or something, but the thing was about that long, about that wide. What we did, we taped one here and another one over here, so we have to turn it around 3 times. But anyway, he was concerned the Army was just going to totally blow all their ammo, and we'd really be screwed without the ammo. So he said, don't I could hear him pleading with his battalion commander, with his commanders, don't fire unless you actually see somebody. Well, anyway, his plan was, try and maintain what we have. And at first light, he had everybody organized to sweep out 360 degrees. There was nobody, except the VC are known to carry off their bodies, and there was very, very few bodies. So they had a thing by, practice or numbers, that if there's so many bodies, that means there were actually that many more that got away. They just disappear into tunnels. Okay. It's just amazing. That whole damn place. How do they dig those? We have stuff like this, all this. They're digging it with spoons and shovels. They had tunnels way back in hospitals. Wow. We had Navy guys bombing hospitals. We weren't supposed to broadcast that, but those 2,000 pounders were the only thing that would go through them. Wow. Yeah, it was quite an interesting tour.
And then was that separate when you were looking through
my brigade FAC, he was also a major. He came out of he was a F-105 pilot, and he was really a gung-ho guy. And we weren't supposed to do this. We weren't supposed to fly over D-zone, and that's where they all were. My God, But the artillery guys, they had what they call H&I, harassment interdiction fire, Major Nunn. I don't think they had any targets, but in my TAOR, there was this big, what did I call it? A thing where all the VC had safe heaven. Isn't that stupid?
Oh, is that the rubber plant?
What?
The rubber plant, or is that different?
No, this isn't the rubber tree. This is way out. Okay. My TOR was 100 miles or so around. But D-zone. In other words, you weren't allowed. We went over there, you had to sign all this stuff. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And we catch a guy out in the open while we were VRing. We couldn't go after him, even with our M16, shooting out with the windows open on the side. We had to go through the district chief. Guess where the district chief? He's in siesta. You can't bother him. I see the guy go in the tunnel. Ding! Heels. Jim said, if I land the airplane, will you go over there and shoot? I know. But anyway, Jim Daniel was quite... Anyway, we thought, my God. Anyway, the Army get these Starlight scopes in. They were brand new. They came out of the Army Proving Ground. They had one that was a huge thing that sat on a huge tripod. You could look out in the perimeter. God, you could see all these guys out there. You know what a Starlight scope, it takes light or moonlight and magnifies it like mad. This was brand new in those days. And then they had a smaller one, and then they had one that was like a telescope. It was about that long and about yay big around. Well, we thought, hey, this would be great. At night, we'll go fly over D-zone and look down there. It was amazing. You look down there, you see all the VC down there cooking their rice, and smoking and everything. So we decided to call the Fire Support Center, Major Nunn, and fire some rounds in there. We gave him some coordinates on the radio. Well, I'm still looking. I'm in the back seat that time. And I'm looking down there, and the first shell hit. It's like a nuke going off. God, I couldn't see out of that eye for 2 days.
Oh, man.
But the Army didn't want us to take it up there because they thought we were going to drop it on the ground, But we finally talked them into doing it. But, oh, God, the Army, something else. What else you got in your list?
Let's see.